Well, sometimes you gotta do a bottle episode. Classic Doctor Who review time. First Doctor story. Little bit of an odd one, this. The Edge of Destruction. This is openly and flagrantly a filler story. And that's something that, by and large, Doctor Who hasn't really done much since this. You'll get filler episodes, especially honestly in the classic era. You'll get 6-part stories that could have been 5 or even 4 parts, and there'll be at least one episode in there where it's a little like, we didn't need that. Heck, you can I would even be willing to say that about, I think it's the second episode of Torchwood Children of Earth. And Children of Earth is an amazing piece of work, but that second episode is like, we don't need this. But anyways, this takes place between the Daleks, the original debut of the Daleks, and Keys of Marinus. And it is just there to fill the space. It's very clear that they needed something else in between these two bigger stories to just fill the time for a couple weeks. And given that that was doubtlessly the remit, this is a pretty solid thing to do with it, especially remembering how early in the run this was. This would have been effectively the third story, if we, consider all the episodes in a serial to comprise of one story. So this means that after An Unearthly Child and the, 2000 BC, 2 million BC, whatever it is, storyline, then Daleks, then this. So it's real early on, and it was really interesting to be reminded of a number of things and to see a number of things start to crop up for the first time. It's really kind of curious. So this starts in a little bit of a contrived way. There's like, oh boy, there used to be not only cliffhangers between the various parts of a story. There used to be between story cliffhangers too, during the first and second Doctor's runs. I'm glad they stopped doing that, because it's not necessary. But regardless, what happened was we opened and there was some kind of explosion in the TARDIS, and everyone was knocked out, and they're all kind of coming to, and everybody is a little bit off to some degree, a little bit wonky. Barbara's the first one up, and Ian kind of pulls himself together eventually, but he's quite disconcerting in this episode. Like he's weirdly stiff and flat in his delivery. Like he's looking at the Doctor still lying on the ground, and oh look, he's over there. Like it's unsettling, and it was clearly a deliberate choice as everyone's kind of getting their feet under them again, and things are just off. Also, props to Susan for taking initiative in a not particularly productive way, but when she finds herself being distrustful and actually initially for a time not quite remembering Barbara and Ian, she arms herself with a pair of scissors that are like, they are like viable as a horror movie murder weapon length. And like, she's, don't come near me. Dang. Like, that's not helpful. That's not going to help the situation. But you know what? For how much she was used to just scream and be damseled later, good initiative. I like it. The other thing that's really interesting about the Doctor in this story, and this is a very short story. This is only 2 parts, meaning the whole thing, it runs about 45 minutes. So this is incredibly short for Doctor Who. But it's really interesting with the Doctor. It's a reminder that early on, he was dangerous, or at least he had a sense of danger about him because the audience didn't really know him that well. They had a much better sense, honestly, of Ian and Barbara because at least they were from Earth and presumably had comparable values, whereas the Doctor, you don't know where he's from, you don't really know what he is, and you don't really know what his values are. And he'd already kind of screwed things up in the Daleks previously. He had purposefully marooned them on this planet when everyone else wanted to leave, just so that he could explore it around. So they don't know if they can trust him. The audience doesn't know if they can trust him. And this story clearly knows that both the audience and Ian and Barbara don't know if they can trust the Doctor. Whether it be because his head's kind of addled, like everybody's is, or if they just flat out can't trust him, full stop. And like, he gives good reason for them not to trust him. He tries to roofie everybody. No, I mean, mainly Barbara and Ian, but like, dude, the hell? There's also a moment that it just, okay, so there's this moment where they're pretty sure that they are all going to die in the TARDIS. I'll kind of get a little bit more into sort of what's going on. But the Doctor kind of leans into Ian and says, we actually have about half as much time left before this goes bad than they think. We're not going to tell them that, though, because I don't want them worried. I want them to think there's still time. So when we die, it's just a moment of surprise, and they're not dreading it, which, is something he whispers to the big strong man about the two women. So the reason I bring that up is I cannot help but remember how annoyed some people were at how the first Doctor was portrayed as a misogynist and a bit of a sexist in the special Twice Upon a Time, where the first Doctor was played by David Bradley. And I'm not going to say that maybe they didn't overemphasize that as an element, but it didn't come from nowhere. Okay, that's sort of my thing with that. People acted like the Doctor was never like that. No, he was a little. Like, maybe they misapplied it, maybe they overdid it in Twice Upon a Time, but it's not based on nothing. Okay? And also, actually, some good moments for Barbara, because towards the tail end, after they've sort of sorted everything, the Doctor was really nasty. Like, he was threatening to kick Ian and Barbara out of the TARDIS, and lest you think that, like, oh, so he's taking them home. No, just wherever they happened to be, he was just going to kick them out. He didn't even know where they were. And Barbara takes that harder. Like, Ian is kind of like, well, no harm, no foul. Everything's fine now. And Barbara, you can tell, like, she does not trust him. And you actually, or at least I did, I got the sense that her sticking around and being amenable had more to do with Susan. I felt like she was doing it for Susan, not for the Doctor. And I like that it's just a sense of her strength of character, which is, it's a good thing to get because, back in the 60s, she was not going to be allowed to be physically strong, but it is a strength of character moment for her. And I quite like it. So the ultimate answer for why this is all happening is kind of absurd. I might come back to that, but so it's hard to talk about actual plot without doing spoilers because it's so short. Okay, before I'm going to get into anything that's spoilery, what I'll say is ultimately what was really smart about this is, as I alluded to at the start, this is a bottle episode. It takes place completely within the interior sets for the TARDIS. So this was, again, obviously something that they were doing in between bigger, more elaborate stories, but also they take the opportunity to just do character beats, do character building, and work these relationships between them and show the audience a little bit more what these people are about. And that's a real good use of a filler bottle episode. Like, if you can't do much plot-wise, the very least you could do is do some character work, and that's exactly what this does. It is a really, really good use of what they had at their disposal in terms of, resources and time, which they didn't have a lot of either. And they pulled something together pretty decent out of it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what I'm going to say are spoilers. Again, it's 45 minutes long. If you're curious, go ahead, watch it. It's solid for what it is. How do I explain this? So that it gets realized that there's all this weirdness that's going on between, like, the flashes that are knocking them out when they try to approach the panel, and like the clocks and watches are all stopping, and like all this other weird stuff that's throwing them all off. It's realized that the TARDIS is trying to communicate with them. The TARDIS itself is trying to warn them of the danger they're in. And what's really interesting about this is the Doctor says, my machine can't think for itself. Now, obviously, that's kind of been retconned at this point, but at this point in time, like, the TARDIS as something that has any kind of personality or thoughts or being anything other than just a machine isn't even in the cards, or at least this is the very first inkling that there is anything more than that. It still gets chalked up to, these safety systems and whatever, just going about things in a slightly odd way. But this is kind of the first inkling within the run of Doctor Who that the TARDIS is not just a machine, just a tool. And that's kind of really interesting. And so what happened was there's a quick, I think it's like rapid return, quick release, something, quick return switch that got pressed at one point, I think after they left Skaro at the end of the previous story, and the spring inside it broke. So a spring in this switch broke so that the switch was permanently on. And so by trying to do like, quick return, it was sending them back to the very beginning of time. And that's why they were in danger. There's actually even a moment that feels very much like okay, here is our minute of educational content as the Doctor explains, what happens at the creation of a solar system and a star system. So like you still get the remnants of this being ostensibly an educational show. But like just the idea that not only is it a busted switch, it's a spring. It's just a little freaking spring inside this switch broke it. And they almost died. If this story had been any longer than 2 parts, had been any longer than 45 minutes, that would have been deeply unsatisfying. But for how long it is, it works. It's kind of fun. It's kind of funny. I like it. It's fine. But yeah, this is a neat little story. And like I said, real good use of limited time and resources to do character work. It's a good little piece. Edge of Destruction. What do you think of this first Doctor story? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. And when I hold polls for classic Doctor stories, which I don't do every month, but when I do, that is a place where you can vote if you support me over there, amongst other benefits. But don't worry too much about it. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Goddess Elida, Zubin Lopfula, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Oliver B., Melissa Pedersen, Movie Turtle, Melinda Walters, Auntie Kate 808, Andre, Becky Sparks, Claire Wright, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Quite Bearish, Rosalind Bennett, Toku Bluhuvian, Adam RDL Taylor, Pal Barabajago, Mary Mello, Mira G, Sir Didymus is my favorite. I've never screwed that one up before. Well, if you want to hear me mess up your name, check out the rewards on the Patreon. I'm going to blame you.